Alright guys, welcome back again to more Tsukihime. Let's continue on with the excitement. But reality is cruel and will not be ignored. All the regrets in the world can't turn back the clock. In pitiless silence, the executor CL approaches to take my life. As though to say we have nothing left to discuss, she hoists her weapon in both hands, ready to fire. The seventh holy scripture embodies many possible deaths, but its true specialty is the annihilation of the soul. Transmigration has no place in the dogma of the Holy Church. One's soul may rise to heaven or fall to hell according to their deeds in life, but for it to return to earth is sacrilege of the highest order. Her holy scripture, forged from the doctrine, is anathema to reincarnation. Its stake driver, punishment, brings death by execution. The impact of its spike can shatter the soul itself. Oh, I get it. She has to do it the right way around. So long as Ro remains alive, Quinze will always revert to the way she was, even if she were to fall on her own stake. She has the ultimate suicide method at her disposal, but it still won't take unless she first destroys her nemesis. That's a frightening-ass weapon. Her muzzle swings through the air. Its stake, protruding like a bayonet, races towards me. But it seems oddly slow. That's interesting. Knowing how strong she is, I'd expected her to run me through before I even knew what happened. I don't have time to think. Oh no. Dodge forward. From my low-slung stance, I break into a desperate sprint. I can't turn around. My every impulse tells me that if I do, I'll find my heart skewered before I can blink. The barrel of her weapon just avoids grazing my head. Being so close and so low saves my life. Diving beneath the mouth of her stake driver by a hair's breadth, I shift my weight to the side just as my foot hits the ground. Correct course or crash straight into her. While I briefly consider tackling her to the ground, I reject the idea. Smart move, man, smart move. If she's strong enough to lift all that weight by herself, pulling her into a wrestling match would be suicidal. Instead, I angle myself sideways, just beneath her arm. As I pass by her side, she suddenly becomes a blur. For a moment, she seems to disappear entirely. She plants her foot down hard and wrenches her weapon's immense weight into a horizontal sweep. It beats the air into submission with a brain-rattling boom. An instant later, I find myself launched a dozen meters backwards into a mound of rubble. She lets out a dissatisfied tut as she glares at me. My left arm aches. Is it broken? I can't comprehend what I'm seeing. My forearm is bent at an impossible angle. Its bones pulverized. Oh yeah, it's shattered. And from shoulder to wrist, the flesh of my outer arm has been stripped away as if worn by a gigantic file.
首をかばって腕一つですか。何もしなければ今ので楽にしてあげたのに。
首をかばって。
I don't remember doing that. My body must have moved instinctually to cover itself before my brain could catch up. And this is the result. Half my arm shredded and my forearm crushed to powder. It's chilling to see my own body so brutally damaged. But what's even more terrifying is that I'm ready to fight on regardless, both mentally and physically.
ナイフ抜かないんですか。
She looks almost bored. I'm no threat to her. Just pray that she can kill at her leisure. The pain from my arm finally makes its way through my nervous system. It feels like my ruptured veins are pumping septic blood straight into my brain. I almost white out from agony. CL simply stares at me, cold as ever. You rip off half my arm and you have nothing to say? Do you have a goddamn clue how much this hurts? How dare you? How dare you? How dare you?
先輩がその気なら。
I grip my knife tightly in my pocket.
こっちだって。むざむざ。
Oh, are we really fighting her? Oh shit. I feel the cool hardiness of its handle.
殺されてなんかやるもんか。
And with a small shink, I slide out its blade.
バカですかあなたは。
In a fraction of a second, Ciel explodes into nothingness. No, that's not right. She bursts into motion, so low-slung, practically skimming the rubble that she vanished from sight until she was right before my eyes. Like a lizard slithering across the ground. In the blink of an eye, she closes the 6 meters between us. Even knowing she's there, I still can't process what her body's doing. I reflexively jerk my head backwards, casting my gaze down to her feet as I do. And in the heartbeat that takes, her stake rises from below and skewering my throat with aching precision. Breath bursts from my lungs. Okay, I'm still breathing. What about pain? Can I still feel pain? Alright, there it is. And I'm still conscious, more or less. Now, what about the rest of my body? Black blood sprays across the rubble. I trace it back to the gaping hole in my left shoulder. Only then do I realize what had just happened. Ciel missed my neck and speared my shoulder instead. Pain. Pain so sickening I don't even recognize it as pain. But I'm still alive. Against all odds. I'm in one piece and I brought myself some distance. The acrid smell of gunpowder rises from my shoulder. She must have pulled the trigger as her bayonet struck home. The blast would have launched me backwards, opening up some space between us.
2度続くということは偶然ではありませんね。その出血でもショック死しないということは精神だけでなく肉体まで変態済みなのでしょう。
The tip of her weapon drops to the ground. The stake that pierced my shoulder dissolves into pages and scatters in the wind.
紙でできてる集団とか。
That's nonsense. But that nonsense almost killed me. It's so horrific I could drop to the ground right here and beg for forgiveness. My shoulder's on fire. Searing pain threatens to devour my whole body. It feels like my bones are being roasted to ash. This voice rises in my head, telling me that the torture device she wields is toxic to the touch. I'm a dead man walking. Immortality won't save me. She's going to kill me no matter what I do. My brain flickers with terror, pain, confusion, anxiety. Is it death itself I'm afraid of? Someone else inflicting it? The pain that will accompany it? Or the weapon that will deliver it? So terrible that the sight alone makes me want to cry and plead for dispensation. I don't know. All my attention is consumed by the executor's cold eyes and the monstrous implement in her hands. She pulls the slide back with a crisp click. She loads another round, then readies her weapon once more. I should be dead twice over. Surviving 2 hits from that thing is a miracle. A third would be too much to hope for. I picture the muzzle leveled at my face, the squeeze on the trigger, the iron spike blasting through the back of my skull. The thought is not so much terrifying as disgusting. Death is always demeaning, vulgar, grotesque, no matter what form it takes. My life is precious. I don't want to subject it to that. Is that the root of my fear? I don't know. I can only derive my lack of an answer. Through all the death I've seen, I've never spared a thought for the canker it exudes. I concern myself only with death, never with the process of dying. But there are worse terrors. Such as life spent in perpetual fear of death, never realizing that being blown to bits would be a mercy by comparison. The pain in my shoulder drags me back to reality. None of that matters right now. I have to get out of here. If I want to live, I have to focus on finding a way to...
メガネ外さないんですか？
An astonished groan escapes my lips. Why on earth would she ask me that? If I take off my glasses, I'll be able to see her lines of death. And if I do that, there's a chance, however minuscule, that I could kill her.
何を言うんですか、先輩は。
Her eyes burn with anger. Anger hot enough to set the very air ablaze.
付き合っていられません。いいですから。もう死んでください。
She drops down low. Here she comes. It's obvious she means to dash at me again, but she moves so fast I can barely see her. My only option is to run. Fortunately, we're further apart this time. If I sprint as fast as I can take cover in the rubble. With the collapsed masonry blocking her line of sight, I'll be able to find somewhere to hide. There's not much left of the underground cathedral, but some of the surrounding passages are still intact. Time to move. If I can just make it. Holy crap. My back. Something is lodged in my back. I slumped face first to the ground. So close. Just a little further and I would have made it. I pushed myself to my feet with one hand. One of the executor's needle-like swords has impaled me. I wrench it free. In a fit of rage, I drag it out through my chest. Luckily, the wound has gone numb, so there's no pain to endure.
よし。
Now I can get to safety.
逃げてどうするつもりですか、遠野くん。
But before I can move, her voice rings out from behind me.
まだわからないんですか。あなたは今どのくらいの速さで走ったと思っているんです。致命傷を受けてどうして死なないでいるんです。
I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say assassin-like reflexes.
あなたは箱の中のマウスと変わらない。なのにまだ何から逃げ出そうと言うんですか。
I look down at the blade I pulled out from myself. The hole in my chest isn't even bleeding. I really have lost my last shreds of humanity. My mind goes white. Don't let her trick you. Don't let her trick you. She's only ever tried to deceive you. Don't listen to a word she says, or you're as good as dead. Ignore her. Even if she's telling the truth, it doesn't matter. Just shut it all out. It's your only chance.
やめ。
もうどこにも逃げ場なんてないんです。あなたには戦うか殺されるかの道しかない。けれど戦うことができないのならあとはもう死ぬしかない。
My executioner approaches, her footsteps deliberately loud.
せめてあがいたらどうですか。私を殺せば一日は生きながらえる。そんなありえない希望を見ながら無様に死ぬのがあなたにはお似合いです。
やめて。
今さら格好つけなくていいですよ。あなたは無邪気に目の前の餌に飛びついて自滅するんですから。ほら、学校ではいつだってそうしていたでしょ。
だからやめろって言ってるだろ。
I leap into the air. Even with my arm mangled, my shoulder punctured, my back impaled, I feel light as a feather. At a speed to match hers, I launch myself 20 meters up, the side of the crater, and come down, breathing hard in a ruined building. I run. No time to think. I just run blindly, trying to get away. But I can't go much further. My lungs cry for air. My arms is hanging on by a thread. My leg catches on something, sending me tumbling to the ground. The hole in my back is fully healed, but my left arm and shoulder are still mangled. Her stake driver must have done something to them. I can think of no solutions, no countermeasures. All I know is that the left side of my body has stopped functioning. I try to push myself up one-handed, but only end up falling comically on my face. I roll into my back and inch across the ground until I reach the wall. Sitting upright is as much as I can manage before I run out of strength. I lift my chin, exposing my throat, and gulp down air.
Tsuki.
The moonlight filters down through a gap in the wall. This must be the price of forcing my body and mind past their limits. In the moonlit haze, everything seems a shell of itself. Ah, now I see. Whether I'm Roa or not hardly matters in the end. Either way, I'm just an empty husk. Just a nameless nobody who knows where that someone labeled Shikitono. A bolt of pain shoots through my shoulder. Maybe, if I had been as sure of myself as I am of this pain, perhaps things wouldn't have come to this. For as long as I can remember, I thought I was Shikitono. But I'm not. Not really. I'm just an unidentified child who took his place. That isn't particularly tragic in and of itself. It's no basis for hatred or regret. The real tragedy is my lack of single memory from my old life before the Tonos took me in. No, worse than tragedy, it's a farce. After all, it only goes to show that I was never really anyone at all. High in the night sky, the moon shines alone. How strange. Why didn't I notice it before? Just how beautiful.
けど笑うのはちょっと難しい。
It might be a farce, but it's poor comedy. Did my life mean anything at all in the end? Even now, on the verge of disappearing, I don't have the slightest idea who I was. What a sick joke. Everything's a haze now. What a sick joke. A world filled with death. A vision filled with death. A day 7 years ago. Master set me on the path to a normal life. I still think our meeting was worthwhile.
でもさ、先生。俺は生きてちゃいけない人間だったみたいだ。
When it comes down to it, I ought to kill myself now while I still have the capacity for such thoughts. But I can't. I can't take my own life. Shameful and wrong as it may be, I want to live. If I die, I'll be making liars of us both. So no matter how sinful it is, no matter what it costs me, I want to live. If only CL had stayed by my side, I would have been willing to lose everything else. That's the only reason I've held out for this long. But now my suffering is finished. It's been 6 years. Although now I'm not sure if that's too long or not long enough.
嘘つき。
I'd rather she said nothing than that. Thank you, Tono. I finally fulfilled my duty. All I have left to do is to tie up a few loose ends.
嘘つき。
Though perhaps there was a grain of truth at the bottom of it all. She might have misled me, but never once. Thank you, truly, for everything you've done. Shall we shake hands one last time? It's been a long while since I felt this happy.
おお。嘘つき。
Never once did she lie to me. Try not to be too mean to Inui in my absence. I wish I could keep pretending to be a high schooler like the two of you. The CL I knew never existed, but her smile at least was real, or so I believe. Still, there's no denying reality. Her whole persona was a fiction, crafted to bring her within killing range of her target. She tricked me. She'd never forgive me for a second. Her saving me when I had nowhere else to go, whiling away the hours with me at school. It was all just to confirm that I was Roa. I clenched my jaw. My molars grind together at the back of my mouth.
畜生。
I claw out the wall in regret. Yes, she deceived you. She calculated her every action to get close to you.
それなのに。
claw at the wall in sadness. Ah, in spite of it all,
俺は先輩を憎めない。
how could I? Whether it was real to her, I enjoyed our time together. Nothing can take that away from me. Not even 2 weeks have passed since we met, but I've never felt so happy to be alive.
ちくしょう。
But in the end, it was all in my head. My eyelids grow heavy. My chest burns, not with the hatred or anger, but with regret. The world blurs around me. Up above, the moon shines a dazzling white. A sea of silence amidst the gray rubble. Softly, it wavers in the night air. Nothing is real. It's all an illusion I can never touch. A fleeting mirage forever out of reach. Ah, she's here. Dry footsteps sound across the seabed. The moonlight casts my executioner's shadow across the broken earth. My back is against the wall. I only have seconds before she finds me. At least I've got things straight in my head now. So, now that that's settled.
殺すか。
My voice doesn't sound like my own. If you don't want to die, kill her. If you think you're in the right, murder her. Do it. Dismember her. Dissect her. Cut her. Tear her. Slash her. Rip her. Stab her. Gut her. Do it. 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 I really don't have much longer. My brain is starting to scramble again. But I still don't want to die. Which means there's only one thing to do. The footsteps are getting louder. My moment of judgment is fast approaching. Aren't you gonna take off your glasses? She knew exactly what she was asking when she said that. So I don't know. Okay, if I take off my glasses, it pretty much screams I'm gonna kill her. If I don't, will I still retain control of myself? No, hold on. No. I did not mean to do that. Load it again. I meant to not take off my glasses. Okay, let's try this again. Don't take off my glasses. She knew what she was asking, but what's my answer?
できる。
I lift my trembling fingers to my glasses.
できるわけないだろ。そんな真似。
A self-destructive impulse seizes me. I hurl the object in my hand, away with all my might. Somewhere in the darkness, hard metal clatters on stone. But the world remains free of lines. It was my knife that I cast away. My glasses remain on my head, where they'll stay until I die. But I can't trust myself to keep hold of my knife. I can't shake the sense that a fate worse than death would await me if I did. Finally, she comes. She's still clutching that monstrous weapon, her eyes empty. Her feet come to a stop in front of me. She could end this now if she wanted, and yet she doesn't. We only stare blankly at each other.
一つ聞きますけど、
The tip of her bayonet points towards my chest.
どうしてメガネを外さなかったんです？どうしてただの一度も私と戦おうとしなかったんです？
どうしてって不思議でもなんでもない。
It didn't even cross my mind.
そんなひどいこと先輩にはできないだろ。
愚かにも程がある。私はあなたを殺すんですよ。私はあなたの先輩なんかじゃない。すべて嘘だったってあれだけ言ってまだわからないんですか？あなたは。
She almost spits out the words. Her face remains composed, but her body shudders in rage and irritation.
知ってる。先輩はずっと俺を騙してきた。シエル先輩なんていう人は初めから嫌しなかったんだって分かってる。
分かっているならどうして。
いいんだ。先輩が嘘でも関係ない。俺はすごく楽しかった。先輩と過ごした時間は先輩にとってはどうでもいい時間だったかもしれないけど、俺にとっては大切だった。
Yeah. She brought me something I never should have had. Something I lost sight of in fear of the future, of death. An utterly mundane bit of happiness that I'd given up on long ago. And I'm okay with that. The girl I loved might have been a fabrication, but the salvation she brought me was very real.
だからいいんだ。
These 2 weeks have been the best days of my life. If I let hatred sour them now, I really will have lost everything. Just because they weren't real to CL doesn't make them false. As long as they mean something to me, they'll always be half true. It isn't a lot to die for, but if my life is the price, then so be it.
そんなことのために命を投げ捨てるんですか。望みは、あなたの望みというのはその程度のものなんですか。
そっか、やっぱり小さいかな。
But it's the second most important thing I can think of. I rack my brain, but I can only think of one other thing I want.
私、いろいろな人を見てきましたけど。
I would assume so. She takes a step closer.
あなたほどバカな人は初めてでした。
She places the barrel of her gun over my heart. But she doesn't pull the trigger. I wonder what's stopping her. She stares at me with hollow eyes. I've seen this same emotionless gaze several times now. Enough to know that doesn't mean she's heartless. It's just that, when push comes to shove, she can't avert her eyes from reality. Her only choice is to suppress her own emotions. She's right. I really am an idiot. Only now am I realizing that it's herself, not me, that this expression is meant to fool.
忘れていました。最後に懺悔を聞いておかないといけません。私、これでも神職ですから。
そうですか。懺悔なんてないけど、一つだけ聞いていいかな。
はい、手短にお願いします。
すぐ済む。どうして先輩はそんなに泣きそうな顔をしてるのかなって思って。
She reacts with surprise. I sense the slightest tremble.
私は泣いてなんていません。
Her face is a vision of cold denial, but I cock my head in confusion. There's no denying the evidence of my eyes.
泣きそうな顔に見える。どうしてかわからないけど。
それはあなたの錯覚です。私は何も感じていませんから。私にある感情は人間として死にたいというものだけです。それ以外の感情なんてない。
Her answer makes me desperately sad. How ironic. Now, at the very end, I can see right through her.
ひどいな。最後まで先輩は俺に嘘をつくのか。
No reply. Her body goes still as though she's frozen over.
あなたこそ嘘をついてる。ここで私に殺されることが望みなんて思ってはいないでしょう。
当然だろ、そんなの。 死んだら何もないじゃないか。一応経験があるからそれぐらいは分かってる。本音を言えば生きていたいけど、ただ生きているのはもうダメらしくて。
That's right. I'm all out of options. Even if I somehow got out of this crater alive, there's no hope waiting for me on the outside. All that remains of Shikitono would soon disappear, and the tragedy of 13 years ago would play out again in Soya. But that's not what would hurt the most. It's that I'd have to live without Ciel. That, more than anything else, I couldn't bear.
今まですごく楽しかったんだ、先輩。有彦と俺と先輩でバカな話をしているときは悪くなかった。ただの休み時間でも先輩が来てくれるだけで夢みたいに楽しかった。
All I want is to have that back, even though I'll never see it come to pass.
俺はずっとあのままの時間が続いてほしかった。
As the words pass my lips, a deep peace comes over me. It might have only been an illusion. It might never have been more than a distant mirage. But what is a mirage if not a dearer for being more beautiful than reality? I'm far beyond anybody's help. Still, if I can die with that dream in my heart, perhaps that will be some kind of salvation. Idiotic, she whispers. Her gun shifts slightly in her hands. With a metallic creak, it presses harder against my chest. Just a little more. A fingernail's breath, and it'll draw blood. Then she'll take one step forward, and this will all be over. But she stays where she is, her unfeeling eyes bore into mine over the barrel of her gun. She bites her lip hard.
そっか。
It must be difficult with me staring back at her. I don't want to see her like this any longer myself. Maybe I can make things a little easier for her. I close my eyes and wait for the cold bite of steel. My heart pounds in my chest. Even my newfound acceptance isn't enough to dispel my sickness and my chills. My throat burns. My fingers tremble uncontrollably. Death at her hands is probably the best conclusion I could hope for, but I guess I'm a coward to the end. I try my best to still my breathing. One easy 10-centimeter thrust and I'll be nothing more than a lifeless sack of meat. My brain teetering on the brink of madness, my sharpened senses, my regenerating body. Everything tells me that my humanity is long gone. I should have known this was coming, yet my heart is shuddering in fear. I wonder if there will be anything left of it once this is over. I keep my eyes closed and try to hold myself still. It'll probably hurt more when the stake goes in. Terrified as I am, feeling nothing at all, not even fear, seems somehow even worse. Sweat beads on my forehead. Every fiber of my being is focused on not making a sound. I'll go quietly and cleanly into death. Hopefully that will spare her some guilt. I hear a breath.
どうして
A strained whisper.
どうしてそんな
The spike against my chest wavers.
私を恨まないでいられるんですか
No, not the spike. The wavers in her voice.
私はあなたを殺そうとしているんですよ。騙して裏切ってこうして残酷に追い詰めているのに、なんでそんな穏やかな顔してるんですか、あなたは。
Sail takes a step forward, but her bayonet stays put.
答えなさい。私はあなたを殺すんです。あなたの都合なんて関係なく、ただ一方的に殺そうとしているんです。ならせめて私を恨まないとあなたは報われないじゃないですか。
Her fiery voice goads me. It's not fair. I just about made peace with my fear, but this might cause me to break down.
それとも本当にバカなんですか、あなたは。私はあなたを汚らわしい吸血鬼として処理するんです。なのにどうして。
Why? I thought we'd been over this already.
だってそれは先輩のせいじゃないだろう。
The tip of her bayonet pierces my skin. A wet warmth blossoms across my chest. Sparks burst in the flesh of my every muscle, in the marrow of my every bone. All the headaches I've ever had pale next to this. My wound is shallow, but the corrosive touch of the seventh holy scripture flays my mind alive.
痛いでしょ。本来なら無痛で消してあげられるのに、こうしてわざとあなたを苦しめているんです。今まであなたに付き合わされた分、こうでもして楽しまないと帳尻が合いませんから。
Her voice cracks as she speaks. The bayonet digs deeper into my flesh. Sweat erupts from every pore in my body. I think my organs might spew out of my mouth.
ほら、私が憎いでしょ。だから早く恨んでください。私に裏切られたって、私なんか信用しなければよかったって言ってください。そうでないと私、あなたを殺すことができないじゃないですか。
I hear the desperation in her shaking voice. This all seems so backwards. Shouldn't she be relieved that I'm not holding anything against her? Why is she so intent on being hated? It's like she needs to make herself the villain, as though she thinks that's her punishment. She's like a child on the verge of tears. I can't bear to add to her burdens.
まさか先輩を恨むことなんてできない。
やめてください。なんで最後までそんなことを言うんですか。悪いのは私で、あなたは被害者だって言うのに。
She's just as much of a victim as I am. However this turns out, I don't have long before Roa takes control. I have to kill him before that can happen, before I repeat Ciel's mistakes. If the only way is to die myself, then that's what I'll do.
いいんだ。先輩は悪くないよ。それよりごめん。こんな役目を先輩に押し付けて。
Just stop, she whispers, as the metal pressure on my chest withdraws a fraction of an inch.
ダメ。私はロアを見逃すことなんてできない。
Her bayonet sways, but I'm sure it will steady soon.
そんなこと許されないんです、遠野くん。
The seventh holy scripture settles over my heart. I hear Ciel draw in a deep breath. Even when my eyes close, I can feel her fingers squeezing the trigger. A metallic click announces my end. But in the instant before it comes,
ありがとう。たとえ嘘でも先輩が先輩でいてくれてよかった。
I leave behind my last and dearest testament. I hear a voice. It's racked with sobbing. Inconsolable wailing like you might hear from a child. Metal drops to the floor with a clang. A hole in the wall shows where her stake missed its mark. The voice finally manages to rein itself in. I slowly open my eyes, knowing who it belongs to. The person before me isn't the CL of moments ago. She's just an ordinary girl, lost and alone, with tears trickling down her downcast face. Her hands are empty. Her weapon lies abandoned on the ground. The round that should have pierced my heart grazed my flank instead. CL cries and cries. Her shoulders heave with pain sobs.
先輩
I call out to her.
ずるい。遠野くんはずるい。あんなことを言うなんてずるいです。なんで私なんかを。
She struggles to speak through her tears.
できない。私自分だっていつでも殺せるのに、あんなこと言われたらできない。
She covers her face with her hands.
ありがとうなんて、そんな幸せな人を死なせるなんてやだ。
As though she's too ashamed to look at me.
先輩そんなに泣かれると困る
Or I'll just feel even more helpless. That must have been the wrong thing to say. She lets out a wail and starts sobbing even harder.
も
This is no time to be second guessing myself. Seized by the urge to comfort her, I take her arm and pull her close. She collapses into my chest and cries into my shirt.
ごめんなさい。
Daddy's a mess, man. Over and over, she repeats these words. Who would have thought? It was the cold, unfeeling CL who was the fake. Now, finally, I've met the real one. It hasn't been an hour since I dialed their number, but it feels like I've been waiting for it forever.
謝らなくていいんだ先輩
I wrap an arm around her, simply wanting to hold her. Her voice is like a taut bowstring finally snapping. At last, she collects herself enough to stop crying. A dull thumping pounds in my ears. Our two heartbeats seem to merge into one. It's so quiet, but there's no need for words. It's enough to stay like this, listening to the beating of her heart. I had only one other desire. Perhaps the smallest thing I could possibly wish for. I just wanted CL to remain the person I loved.
先輩の体あったかい
違います。あったかいのは遠野くんの方で、私は嫌になるぐらい冷たい人間です。こんなに優しい人にひどいことをしました。
No, CL. I'm not as kind as you think. Even now, all I want is to feel you. I want to forget about the rest of the world and stay here forever with you all to myself.
いいです俺はまだ生きているんだからそれでいいんですもうこうしていられるならそれでいいんだ
Once long ago, I nearly died, and I woke to a world too hideous to bear. A world filled with death. As far as the eye could see, full of fragile things that might break at any moment. But now I know that fragility is what makes life so miraculous. I can feel it now, in the warmth of CL's touch. It's far more than a dead man like me could ever hope for.
先輩俺先輩がすごく大切だ
遠野くん？
I love her. This girl is more precious to me than my own life. I never want to make her cry again. I want her life to be so full of joy that she'll smile for real.
俺はやっぱり死にたくない。ギリギリまで生きて、こうして先輩と一緒にいたい。だから。
It's selfish and naive, but I'll say it anyway. To help us both finally wipe our slates clean.
俺はもう逃げない。自分から死のうなんて考えない。だからお願いします、先輩。どうか俺がロアに勝てる手助けをしてください。
大きく出ましたね。ロアを倒すではなくロアに勝利するですか。それは今まで誰もできなかったことですよ。
You should see what we did in the previous route.
称賛なしで大口を叩いてるのも承知の上です。でもそうしないともう先輩といられないんだからやるしかないです。
どんな無茶でもですか。
はい。俺が死ぬ以外の手段があるなら今はそれにかけてみたい。ああ、いえ、そもそも選択肢があるかどうかからですけど。
ありますよ。私にもわからないけどきっとあります。
She steps closer. Her hands squeeze tight around mine.
あなたがロアと戦うというのなら私も諦めません。大丈夫。聖堂教会だって無駄に2000年も続いていません。教会中をひっくり返せばきっと他の手段が見つかるはずです。
I mean, there is an alternative. He can take off his glasses in front of a mirror and find his line of death. If Roa did take him over.
まあ遠野くんが私の言うことを何でも聞いてくれるならという条件はつきますが。
That's one hell of an asterisk to tack on. Well, whatever. I'm just glad she's back to her usual self.
何ですかそれ。そんなに無茶なことばっかりなんですか、教会って。
まあ時と場合によっては大変な難病ですので患者さんはお医者さんの判断を信じてくれないと話になりません。
そういうことなら問題ないですね。何があっても先輩が好きですから俺。
そうですか。奇遇ですが私も同じですので信頼関係はバッチリですね。
Wow. Seeing Ciel blush is cuteness overload. I find myself staring intently. In spite of the situation, she's all I can think about. Our faces draw closer. I move my arms around their slender shoulders.
遠野くん。
ごめん先輩。もう我慢の限界だ。
はい。
Her lips seem to draw me in. Faint resistance quickly melts into hesitant acceptance. Our kiss is shallow, but long, as though we're assuring ourselves of each other's affection.
もうこんな時なのに男の子なんですね。
本能に忠実だと言ってください。目の前にこんな可愛い人がいたら誰だってこうします。
Ciel turns a deeper shade of red. An urge to pull her even closer seizes me, but this time I manage to hold it back. At this rate, we'll still be here come dawn.
とにかく先輩が手助けしてくれるなら100人力です。まずは教会に行けばいいんですね。
ええ、本国は無理でもこの国にはいくつかの支部がありますから。でもその前にもっと大きな問題がありました。ロアなんかよりもっと大きな問題が。
ロアより大きな問題ですか。
いいえ、何でもありません。今はここから出ましょう。私のアパートなら 少しは遠野くんを楽にしてあげられると思います。
I was sitting still long enough to regain some of my strength. My wounds are closing. The pain is starting to fade. As unsettling as Roa's alterations to my body are, they're more help than hindrance right now.
はい、そうでした。こちらどうぞ。落とし物ですよ。大事なものなんでしょ。
She produces a metal object, the knife I threw away. A memento from my father. If that means what I think it means, it's all I have left of the person I used to be.